Happy politics, and welcome back to your favorite BC politics podcast and YouTube show. Yes, I took a week off and much happened, and we have a lot to talk about this week. But first, I should introduce myself in case you've forgotten. My name is Maclean K. I'm the editor-in-chief of this fine site, The Orca, and I'm joined still in a socially distant manner by...
It's Jordan Bateman, Vice President Communications for the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association. I'm just going to apologize right off the top. My earpiece is driving me crazy. I'll be fidgeting with it the whole time, but if you people want me to hear Maclean, I just got to live with this, even though, I think the show would be better if maybe I didn't hear him.
Well, I think a fair amount of suffering is worth hearing what I have to say. That's just my opinion, and, that's fine. The other thing we should have added to your title is you're also apparently the silver medalist to become Canada's newest Governor General.
Yeah, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Maclean, I'm sure I was second on the list for Prime Minister Trudeau, but no doubt he looked at my tweets and realized that unlike the new Governor General, I never worked for the Trudeau Foundation or never worked with them, so... I guess I was ruled out.
Congratulations to Mary Simon, who is Canada's first Indigenous Governor General. And I guess the thing everyone's talking about, other than that, is that she does not speak French. And, maybe you could possibly have more French than Mary Simon. It's possible. I don't know.
That seems unlikely.
I don't know her very well.
It seems unlikely. I'm not sure the French love the idea of a Governor General anyways. So I'm not sure this is going to endear that office to their hearts much more. But, honestly, congratulations. Yeah. I take it as another sign that an election is coming because Trudeau needs someone in that job who could say yes to dissolving Parliament and calling the election.
That's a good point, actually. I hadn't even considered that, but you're right.
Because, they had an interim or whatever, but, chances are you want the full-fledged Governor General in place before you, destroy Parliament, or dissolve Parliament. Not destroy, dissolve Parliament.
Our next topic is our first topic, and I should preface this. I want to preface this by explaining how I stumbled across it. I spent last week on Pender Island, as is my wont, mostly ignoring Twitter and all things electronic, which is also my want. But I was checking one day because I wanted to see what was going on in the world of football, and Twitter had exploded. And I thought it was a joke. I didn't realize this is something that had actually happened. And I'm referring, of course, to fatalities are part of life, which was the phrase uttered by our Premier, John Horgan, in response to the provincial response to the staggering heat wave or lack thereof. And it's looking like hundreds of people lost their lives throughout BC in just a space of a couple days, this heat wave. So, it's grim and it's horrible stuff. Jody Vance wrote about being extremely close and uncomfortably close to the wildfire near Kamloops. So this was very real for a lot of people. A number of people were evacuated, and of course the entire village of Lytton is gone. But even more tragically is hundreds of people losing their lives. I think at the very least we can say that this was spectacularly poorly phrased by the Premier. Let's start there.
Well, yeah, let's set the stage. So the Premier wants to celebrate. It's the end of the COVID phase 2, right? We're opening up. You can, masks are now just, a recommendation or whatever. You can go anywhere you want, blah, blah. All right, so he's in celebration mode. And those darn reporters with their bad news narratives come after him and say, well, sir, we're starting to hear reports from police that, hundreds of people may have died in the, in this heat wave. What do you think? Well, typical Horgan bluster, fatalities are part of life, and not a great look, a terrible look to be honest. Now it seems like maybe as many as 700 people may have died in the heat wave across the province.
Dear God.
If I recall correctly, and I may be way out of date on my COVID fatality numbers, but I think COVID fatalities were around 1,500 over a year and a bit. This is now 700 in a matter of days. It's very clear the government was completely taken off guard. Despite the weather warnings, there was nothing there was nothing opening up. They a number of municipalities stuck to their COVID lockdown rules, so there weren't even air-conditioned libraries open and things like that. I can tell you here, driving out the Friday from work, or the Monday from work, we work above Metrotown Mall. We use the parkade within Metrotown. It was like a Christmas shopping day. It was packed. And if you actually walk through Metrotown Mall, it wasn't packed by people shopping. It was packed with people who had gone to McDonald's, bought their dollar drink, and were sitting on the floor all over the mall, the ground floor, so they weren't even getting the sun from the top floor, trying to find a place to stay cool. And that's when I really stopped and said, okay, this is Christmas levels of customers at Metrotown Mall on a Monday. Something big is happening here. But yeah, the government looked terrible. And if I were the BC Liberals, I would seize on that comment and I would make sure no British Columbian forgot that comment. Because this was even pre-Lytton. Lytton burned, I believe, the next day, or the day after. 2 people have perished in that fire. I would seize on it, and to the point where I would get I would get those audio greeting cards, Maclean, where you open it up and they sing "Happy Birthday" to you. I would print up, if I were the BC Liberals, hundreds of those cards, and I'd have on the front cover a picture of mean old John Horgan, and I'd say on such and such a date, 700 British Columbians perished in an unprecedented heat wave because the government wasn't prepared. What did John Horgan say? And I'd open it up and I'd have his voice. Fatalities are a part of life. And then, no, they're not, Premier. We can do better. Our elders deserve better. Because again, much like COVID, this is primarily this is primarily something that has harmed our elders, our seniors, the poor, the people who can't get out of their apartments because they aren't as mobile as other people. I was shocked at the comment. Like you, I saw it on Twitter and I thought, this has got to be overstated. Then I watched the clip. No, he really said that. And his staff kind of tried to peel it back on Twitter later. No apology, you'll notice. He should just come right out and said, I'm sorry for being a dummy, and I was just excited about COVID and let's get on with it. But yeah, he should be even sorrier about how unprepared the government seemed to be.
Yeah, I mean, there used to be a Minister of State for Emergency Preparedness, and it does appear at least as though everyone's guard was sort of collectively let down because, as you're right, I mean, we had just lifted most of the restrictions on Canada Day, and it was just the government was clearly in declenching mode. I mean, completely understandable,
sure.
But you have to be ready to scramble when the next crisis comes, and unfortunately it was 48 hours later.
It's a $55 billion a year operation, government. You can multitask.
Yes.
You can do more than one thing at once. And, there have been some suggestions like, Henry was so busy and Dix was so busy with blah, blah, blah. Not good enough. If you're too busy to handle it, then you have to outsource it to Farnworth as Solicitor General or find someone else who can help. That is not an excuse. You've got to be better than this. And it does make you wonder, forest fires, we're seeing lightning storms throughout BC. So far, Lytton has been kind of the epicenter of this, but it's happening all over the province. Kamloops was, a breath away from losing a major neighborhood, Todd Stone's neighborhood. I've never followed Todd Stone tweets so closely as I did that night because, he and his family were evacuating from Juniper Ridge, I believe it's called. And
did he live tweet that?
Yeah,
I was away. I apologize.
Yeah,
I did not see that.
Kind of live tweeted it, and I was like, wow, it hits home because you're like, yeah, Todd Stone, he's young kids, and they could have lost everything, and it was really the hard work of the Kamloops Fire Department and a little bit of luck that kept that neighborhood safe. And I just wonder, what are we doing here? The NDP still haven't declared a state of emergency. John Horgan, I guess, toured Lytton by airplane. He's already talking about how we're going to build the city of tomorrow, the city of the future there. I think a lot of people are still grieving the city that they just lost. I wonder how that goes over. And it's one thing to fly over, it's another thing to make sure that those folks have the resources they need to get up and running again.
On the not declaring a state of emergency, let's talk about that because that became an issue this week. Now, there are, I want to say, it's probably changing since the last time I checked early this morning, but let's call it 200 fires burning in BC right now. And if that's not accurate, it's either more or it's less, but it's close. Several are fires of note, which are, major fires that are,
Mm-hmm.
actively being fought. Week off, my grammar goes to hell. Why no provincial state of emergency? It would seem a reasonable thing to do. We just lost an entire village. The provincial government has said no. This is something that is recommended by independent organizations like the Wildfire Service, and there are local organizations that can scramble. Others have pointed out, well, why wouldn't you? Because it helps mobilize resources more efficiently. And ask the people of Lytton; they'll tell you there's an emergency. I understand reluctance to go back into a provincial state of emergency after just leaving one for 14 months. I get it, or 16 months, whatever it was. Fair, but Lytton burned to the ground.
Yeah.
Kamloops nearly burned to the ground. If a provincial state of emergency can help marshal resources more effectively to save homes and, yes, lives, I don't really see the downside. I understand the provincial government's defense there. I do. But I just think, why not do it?
I agree. I don't understand the reluctance to do it. I mean, like you said, we just had 14 months of a state of emergency for COVID. We've had many state of emergencies in the past when it relates to forest fires. I think if COVID never existed, we would absolutely be in a state of emergency.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And it's not about, state of emergency isn't about locking us down again or anything like that. It's about, making sure the resources are marshaled and making sure everyone knows who's in charge of response. And when you piecemeal approach this, things can fall through the cracks, and that's not good either. So, what is the problem? I don't understand government's reluctance to pull that trigger and take control of what's going on the ground, unless, plausible deniability, but they're going to get blamed no matter what if another village burns. But I do not understand the reluctance on that. They should just get on with it and do it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, that's a good point. That if in a world where we had not just gone through COVID, there's no question there would be a provincial state of emergency. We just had one in, was it 2017, the year of the election? We had a provincial state of emergency during all the uncertainty with government to deal with forest fires. And these ones are, well, I don't want to say worse, but again, we lost an entire village.
Yeah, and the stories coming out of Lytton are heartbreaking and shocking. It happened, a lot of people have compared it to what happened in Fort Mac a few years ago. It happened faster than Fort Mac, so I think the impact is actually less on the general public in that it happened so fast people didn't even have time to hit record on their phones on their way out of town. So we had 2 or 3 video clips tops, whereas, Fort Mac, people had to, there was a lot more video, a lot more road cameras, things like that. But, they've lost 90% of their homes are gone. The museum, I believe it was a Chinese history museum, or
it was, yeah.
That's gone. Daniel Marshall tweeted out about, or Facebooked out about that, who's Art Your Mind's favorite BC historian.
Absolutely.
Lamenting the loss of the artifacts there, and that this is a crushing, devastating blow for that community. And I don't know, maybe because of COVID, we just seem to be yada-yadaing our way past it.
Or we're just kind of numb, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not good enough if you're one of the people in Lytton who's lost their homes, or there was that one couple who died in front of their child or grown son, but still, my God, how do you even wrap your head around that? So hopefully, no pun intended, cooler heads will prevail, and and hopefully the fires. It's less than 20 degrees here in Victoria. That doesn't mean anything in the interior, but hopefully it's cooling down everywhere. We should talk about something else that heated up in a more metaphorical way while I was gone, and that is the ongoing and now much more official BC Liberal leadership race. 2 weeks ago, the last episode, we talked about the entrance of Val Litwin and the dynamic he brings to it. I thought Rob Shaw had a good interview and a fascinating piece with him. While I was gone, we had what I thought was an entrance, but not really. And Jordan, I'll let you fill in the blanks.
Well, Aaron Gunn, who's well known on social media, has a big social media following in British Columbia and across Canada. He was promoting a Canada Day barbecue, an uncanceled Canada Day barbecue, in which he was going to make an announcement. I saw you roll your eyes there, sir.
You know what? It's not to preempt what you're going to say. Him going on Canada Day was smart for the his base. I think that is, and the issues around Canada Day this year, that was a savvy move on his part. Yeah. Sort of like Gavin Dew launching immediately after "Don't blow this for the rest of us millennials." Yeah. So sorry. Yeah. Yes.
All right. So Aaron live streamed Instagram. It's him kind of in a group of people, ethnically diverse, young, skewing barbecue attendees, probably about 30, maybe 25 or 30 people there. And Aaron's giving a speech, standing up for Canadian values and the history of Canada. And we weren't perfect, but let's not, we shouldn't throw everything away. Talking about the day that he saw the Sir John A. Macdonald statue pulled down in Victoria and how that saddened him. He's a Victoria guy. And so all that, and then, and I'm going basically he comes out and says, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to now announce that I have formed an exploratory committee to consider a campaign to become leader of the BC Liberal Party. And I got to hand it to him. He said the words that none of these other candidates have said, the next Premier of British Columbia, which I appreciated that because, I don't think any of them have really said, be Premier. They've all said be leader of the BC Liberals.
That's a good point, actually. I think you're right.
Dunked a little bit on the name BC Liberal, as good conservative should, saying, the whatever it's going to be named, kind of making it clear that, it wouldn't be BC Liberal long, and I don't think it will be. And so an exploratory committee, which begs a number of questions from me. Yes. Number one, who is on this exploratory committee? How is it structured? Why are we borrowing something that presidents use, exploratory committees? Is it just a way to kind of, have him travel around all summer and then come back in the fall and make an announcement one way or the other? I've always been of the theory that Aaron Gunn needs the least amount of time, and in fact would benefit from the least amount of time actually being in the race. For him, this is strictly a social media sales effort. Can he turn his 40, 50,000 followers on social media into 10 or 15,000 BC Liberal memberships? To me, that's a 30-day push. If they haven't signed up within a couple weeks, they're not signing up. So I did find it entertaining, the comments on his own stream, people shredding, the BC Liberal name, Liberal in general. I'll never join the BC Liberals. That's going to be a hurdle for him to overcome, but welcome to life as a BC Liberal, Aaron. We've all faced it. Anyways, well, it was a good speech. He didn't come off as angry. He came off as defiant, I would say. He brings to the party this, and this is something that the party has lacked for a long time, ever since the Darryl Plekas defection in 2017. He brings a willingness to push back on social media. Right now, when something blows up on social media, and it's by and large led by NDP partisans and flacks, the MLAs scurry. They apologize, or they immediately retract, or they disappear. Aaron Gunn will not do that. I guarantee you, if the NDP attack Aaron Gunn, he will attack them back harder. And frankly, that's the nature of politics online, right? That's kind of what you should be doing. If they're attacking you on your principles, stand up for your principles. Push back. He will do that. So, part of me is I'd like to see Aaron Gunn in the race, because I'd like to see the BC Liberals develop more of a backbone, especially online, but, defending their things. But, ever since that, actually it's before the Plex, ever since that clone speech, the principles kind of guiding the BC Liberals have been very wavy. Much like COVID restrictions were a wavy line, and some things were above the line, some were below, the principles of the BC Liberals have been a bit of a wavy line. What do we actually stand for? We stand for smaller government, but we support a big childcare program, and we support, you kind of go back and forth.
Yeah.
That has caused frustration within the coalition, because in a coalition, you generally are willing to compromise on one side in order to make gains on the other. That's part of being a coalition. But when the line is so wavy, everyone just feels like they're compromising. Anyways, all that to say, he would be very interesting to have in the race. The BC Liberals need to ramp up their social media presence. I can tell you, I just had my mid-year review with Chris Gardner, our president. One of the things, metrics that I look at are Facebook following for ICBA. And we look at, kind of trends out there. I can tell you the BC Liberals stuck at about 24,000 Facebook followers. The Green Party is growing leaps and bounds. In the last quarter, they went from about 17,000 to about 19,000. At that rate, they will pass the BC Liberal Party within 6 months or a year. I think that has to do with Ferry Grove, Ferry Creek. Ferry Glen's in Scotland, so Ferry Creek. I think that has to do with old growth. I've noticed the narwhal's really jumped up. The Tyee has jumped up.
The Greens have done a good job of seizing onto that issue too. So, they have. You're probably right.
Yeah, but you need that kind of. There's a certain kind of content you have to put out online in order to gain followers, especially when you're a political party, and you can't be backtracking and apologizing all the time on social media. You have to be pushing principles, and that if nothing else, Aaron Gunn would teach the party how to do that.
It'll be fascinating to see. I don't really have much more to add, and that I will admit I didn't see the event because I was away and I didn't avoiding all these things. But,
it got zero coverage, not a word written anywhere.
But I don't think from what you're saying, and I think you're right, I don't think he cares. He's not going to get more or less attention from a Vancouver Sun story in the same way that. Just because we just talked about him, Val Litwin would. Val Litwin getting a major story in the Vancouver Sun is very good for him in his campaign, but for Aaron Gunn, I mean, it might even be negative.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. There's an interesting dynamic there. I too am. I won't use the word dubious because that's too negative, but I am curious about this exploratory committee. I get the sense that he's sort of waiting to be asked, for there to be a draft Aaron Gunn movement that he can point to. And hey, fair enough. But I don't know. You're right. It's interesting. I'm not sure when the deadline is to officially register. So I guess that's how much time he'll have.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I will say this, do not underestimate Aaron Gunn's abilities to generate interest. This is someone who, like me, comes from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Mm-hmm. We learn how to get media attention. We learn how to do stunts, but we learn how to do it on next to no money. If you recall, I did win a regional referendum on TransLink being outspent $7 million to $40,000. Don't know if I've ever mentioned that, but
once or twice. But I mean, not often enough for my taste. So,
but exactly. So you're outspent 170 to 1, but who's counting? But he's used to those kind of long odds. So I think most of us agree Falcon will be fully funded. You'll have probably the most money in the race. That will give a big sense of confidence. Lee and Ross come in, and Merrifield come in with some support within the membership. They're MLAs, some for longer than others. Gavin has that organizational side where he helped recruit a lot of the young candidates. So they all have those strengths, but don't underestimate the value of being able to campaign on next to no money, especially if, especially since that means you don't have to raise a lot of money in order to campaign, which then gives you more opportunity to reach out to members and not ask for dollars.
You mentioned Renee Merrifield in the list of contenders. She has not yet officially joined. I think the answer is no, but do we have any more intel on when that might, or I guess possibly might not happen?
Yeah, well, I hear she's going to run, so
yeah,
I will say that. I do wonder if BC Day is the day.
Oh.
That would be the next kind of thing on the calendar. Like, if you're going to go on kind of the Canada Day model, like maybe BC Day is the model to do it. First of all, BC Day, I think for a lot of us, a lot of the old history buffs, is connected with W.A.C. Bennett, who I believe brought it in. She's a Kelowna MLA.
Fair enough.
As was W.A.C. and, of course, Bill Bennett, his son. So I do wonder if maybe that would be the day. Otherwise, if it's not, just wait till September. Still do your campaigning work. The only problem is, until she puts her money in with the party and gets approved, she can't access the member list.
That's right.
And now you can kind of work around that, right? You can deal with, you could reach out to a riding president like me and say, hey, I'd like to chat with the folks from Langley East. Okay, we'll put something together. Most riding presidents would do that, I'm sure, but you don't have access to that list. And that is, I can tell you, I'm getting lots of emails from BC Liberal leadership contenders, even now. So that's something you're going to want to get. By the way, speaking of random things you may miss, on July 4th, Independence Day, Kevin Falcon posted a throwback picture of him with POTUS, Martin Sheen from West Wing, which I thought was a kind of a funny, cute thing to send out, and wishing his American friends a happy Independence Day. So that was a nice little touch. It's always good to see President Bartlett back in the public eye.
Thank you. The West Wing is kind of like my dirty little secret in that everyone of our generation who was politically inclined was supposed to be obsessed with the show, like the Game of Thrones for that subset of its era, and it just didn't do anything for me. It was a decent show. I'm not saying it sucked. I would watch it and I'd be like, eh.
You're such a Toby Ziegler. Be more of a CJ Craig like me.
I don't know. It was okay. There are better shows. That's all I'm going to say.
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
I know. Among people of a certain age, which is us, I know that's sacrilege. It's like a millennial saying Game of Thrones sucked. It's just I would
never go back to watch it again. And I'm going to give you a 20-year-old spoiler, but the episode where Mrs. Landingham passes away, and Bartlett is in political hell, and his dear secretary has just passed away, and he weeps in whatever the National Cathedral is in Washington. Mm-hmm. It is, as Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah plays behind him. Oh, gets me in all the feels right now.
Well,
choking up right now.
That episode, so
Mrs. Landingham. She's a great actress who seems to die in every show she's in. She died in Scrubs, and it really sent JD for a loop. So, Mrs. Landingham, shout out to you.
Scrubs is another show I never saw. I feel very disconnected right now. I don't know what to tell you.
First couple seasons of Scrubs are fantastic. They're worth going back for. They hold up.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Well, hold on. They hold up. They hold up.
Anything?
They don't. They hold up. They hold up. Except there are some things that you were allowed to say in the early 2000s that maybe now those don't. That I find a bit uncomfortable. Well, very uncomfortable.
That is true of all the shows from back
I know.
then.
I know. All those guys. Friends, the same thing.
Yeah. Seinfeld. It's everything. All those shows.
Being
deeply
being gay was an insult, and like that's.
Yeah.
We've take a step back. We've come a long way in 20 years. Like.
Yes.
Amazing.
My as a quick aside, I will not say the word, but my son learned a very, very, very bad word that I don't want to repeat. He doesn't use it. We explained it, but he loves Faulty Towers, which is a creation of the late 70s, and of course in a different country. And we were happily watching, thinking, there aren't any swear words, and then one of the characters, who's a doddering old man, and he's portrayed as such, uses a racial slur. Which is meant to be a laugh line because only a doddering old man would say this in public is the joke, but we all just kind of went, oh, do we turn it off? What do we do? I don't know what to do here. So what we did do is hit pause and just say, look, Ian, that is not a word you can ever say ever. And this was made before Mama was born, not before Dada was born, and it's a different time in a different country, and it's a bad word, and I don't ever want to hear you say it for any reason whatsoever. And he was just like, okay.
Yep. Sure. Right.
Sure.
Yeah, gotcha. I wasn't even really paying attention until you told me. Yes, that is a problem. When we were church youth pastors, young youth pastors, we had an event. It was like school's back in event. So like the first day after school, you'd come to the church. We had milk and cookies. We watched a movie. We watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But Maclean, Jenny and I had grown up watching only the TV edit of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is very different than when you rent it from Blockbuster or Video Update or wherever we got it from. We were cringing and apologizing to parents for a few weeks after.
I feel like we missed the Gillian Stead segment, and so I don't know what we call this one.
If Gillian Stead has a problem with us talking about West Wing and Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Faulty Towers, then Gillian, I can't help you. Come on.
Well, someone will complain about this segment, and then we will name whenever we talk about something that's TV or movies. We'll call that the person X. You may safely log off and come back for the sports part. But until next week, and we are planning to be here next week. Do we have anything else? I don't think we have anything else.
Yes, I am planning to be here this next week after I've had my mid-year review, so everything seems fine. So I will be here next week.
That's good. Jordan recording from his car.
You don't want to talk about next week? Let's talk about CFL training camps at the end, because we're like 3 weeks away from games or something.
I know, and I still can't find out if I can actually go to any games. I keep calling the ticket offices, and they keep saying, well, we don't know about capacity yet, which is odd. But, I mean, they're doing the best they can.
Yes. By the way, my son has decided that he is now going to be a Stampeders fan. The break in these 2 years have given him the opportunity to reflect on the CFL, and he's like, why am I cheering for a franchise that's won, 5 Grey Cups in 70 years when I can cheer for the Stamps who make it every other year? So...
Hey, I don't know your kids, but I now can say that I have a favorite.
It's better than him being a Rough Rider fan, which was my fear for a while. Like, I can't take a kid with a stupid watermelon on his head to games. I just won't do it.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, Bo Levi Mitchell. Maybe we all become believers and just go with it.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen this year. Going to happen again, I should say, because, they keep winning. All right. Until next week, when we were both still planning very much to be here, he's Jordan Bateman. I'm Maclean K. Sorry, Jillian. This was BC Poly Hot Stove.